My name's Evan. I'm 3D dough. And the morning I climbed onto my grandmother's roof, my uncle turned me into content. Grandma Evelyn called it Schweck Dow. A.M. Voice shaking water on the carpet, pooling by an outlet. I'm scared. I said I'd be there in 2 hours. Hardware store at open shingles. Underlayment. Sealant. Utility knife. Screws. 420美元. Shaba. She's on a fixed income. I wouldn't take her card. By 8:30. Her blue bungalow smelled like lemon oil. She handed me coffee in a chipped violet mug. I hate to bother you. Leaks never wait for permission. July heat. Roof like a skillet. Tar chewed through my gloves. 20 minutes, and my shirt was a wet flag. Engines. Laughter. Barrett, my mother's golden child brother, projecting orders tense by the lilacs. White tablecloths. Gold rims. A steel tub for ice. A charity luncheon. At Grandma's. With a leak gnawing her ceiling. He waved up. Keep working. Champ. Then to his guests, network momentum. He loves that word. For as long as I remember, Barrett's been the promise. When I needed $1, $180 for tuition, at 19. The family held funds to help him with a retainer. When my car tow cost $640, at 24. He said, get a card with points. When Grandma's winter water heater was $2, Sunbay. The 4-way split became $50 from him and tight month from a cousin. I paid the rest. She cried in hot water. Noon. Speeches under white tents. Shrimp scent. That's my nephew. Barrett boomed. State sociology. Thought he'd change the world. Now he's practical. Laughter. He zoomed in on my face, then panned to champagne. Contrast for the joke. I finished my run. Sealed the seam. Packed my tools. On the porch, Grandma whispered, please don't leave because of him. I'll be back next weekend. I said. At home, his public post. Vertical clip. Me bent over the ridgeline. Smash cut to bubbles. Caption family discount labor. Number, humble work number. Family discount number, grind set. Comments stacked. At least he's useful. Mom called. He was joking. The video said otherwise. Barrett is the golden child. I said. She didn't like the phrase. I didn't need her to. What none of them knew, I run rehabilitation education for the state 32 facilities, 203 instructors. 6 figures and a key card. I stopped telling my family news years ago. They prefer me harmless and available. 2 weeks after the roof, Barrett was arrested wire fraud. Falsified documents. Law firm dropped him. Country club vanished him. 6 months later, the judge ordered ethics education. He landed in my program. I took session 1 myself, placed the classroom camera as usual, and said, welcome to Ethics 101. Let's talk about humility. I finished Grandma's roof that weekend. The rain tested my seams and they held. My office hums behind a badge-locked door. Classrooms are steady cinder block. Scuffed floors. 2 o'clock. Always. 3 minutes slow. I bring peppermints. A small kindness changes posture. Unit C. Nina Denman. I write 3 words. Choice. Consequence. Repair. Which one scares you most? Repair. Dario says, means facing who I hurt. That's the work. Hold still, while someone drags a mirror into the light. At lunch. Lila drops a tuna sandwich in trouble look. You okay? I nod. She leaves the sandwich anyway. It tastes like metal. Stress does that. I teach the mustard rule with a diner bottle. Tiny thefts, rehearse big ones. They laugh, then think. It sticks. Grandma calls about soup. Mom texts, keep the peace. Don't provoke him online. I haven't posted anything. A memo arrives, white-collar cohort assigned. At the bottom, Barrett. I don't recusa. I don't grandstand. 2 rules, no spectacle. No. Special mercy. Week 1. Humility goes on the board. You are not the worst thing you've done. You are not the best story you tell about yourself. Barrett slips in late. Gray shirt. No belt. Sits near the exit. Ground rules, no crosstalk. If you can't be honest, be quiet. Names. Not charges. Truth. Even if your voice shakes. The mustard bottle lands on the desk. What's the smallest slide you ignored, I ask. Copying a signature. Rounding hours. Printer ink. The room nods. Barrett's paper stays blank. As they leave, I give 1 sentence per person. Good naming. See you Wednesday. At the door, Barrett whispers. You going to enjoy this? No. You could have refused. You could have. Years ago. That night, Mom says, he feels humiliated. I'm treating him like everyone else. He isn't everyone else. She hears herself. We go quiet. I watch the session video program camera, not my phone, and note the flinch when I say humility. Session 2 is accountability. Not punishment, a location. Stand where it happened. Name it. I hand out ledgers, who was harmed, divided by, how divided by, what would repair look like. Private, unless you share. Barrett taps. Then writes, when sharing starts, he asks for privacy assurance, unless there's harm. I say, he nods. I used my mother's name to secure pledges. He says, dragged her into rooms she hated. Repair is leaving her alone. Repaying donors. Apologizing publicly. And calling board members I called negative for asking questions. What gets in the way? Shame. Habit. We role play. A donor, voiced by Darius, says, lose the polish. Baratrice again. Better. Diner off Route 9. Neutral ground. Barrett slides a $10. 0, 0, 0, check to Evelyn. Restitution. He says, note it in the report. I'll note payments. I won't take it. Help me. And I'll help her. That's the problem. I say, you think doors open because you knock nice. Policy requires disclosure of any influence attempt. I write the memo time, place, words, no adjectives. Saturday tea at Grandma's. Album pages. An old parable. One child bleeding in public. The other learning to bleed in private. Patterns don't ask for our age. She says, a manila envelope appears pledge forms, signatures in 2 inks, sticky note from a former board member. I forward to legal. Documentation is a spine. Lockdown drill becomes real. We do circle work. Name the fear if you change. Barrett, I'm afraid I'm nobody without applause. Start with 2 hands. I say. Before leaving, he hands me a draft to the judge. It's almost brave. I cut a sentence. I'm sorry if anyone felt misled. Replace with, I'm sorry I misled them. Week 3. Keystone. Hold the arch or it falls. Index cards with 1 name each. If I change, they will. Promise furniture. Not fireworks. Barrett's card, says Evelyn. If I change, he says, and my mother will stop waiting at the window for a police car that's already here. Name the keystone. Telling the truth without a twist, even when it makes me smaller. In Class 1, hard truth. No explanations. Barrett, I forged my mother's signature in 2019. Called it symbolic? It wasn't. Repair. Tell the donor. Board. And judge. Pay it back with receipts. Tell my mother. Put it in writing. Family dinner. Mom asks. Careful fork voice. To soften the report. We document. I say. Barrett brings a French-named pie he can't pronounce. Grandma sets out mustard. The jar slips. Streaks yellow. Stains happen. She says. The one who spilled it washes it out. He scrubs. A ghost remains. Lesson holds. I reporter emails. Fishing for soft on white collar narrative. We decline. Class isn't content. Barrett's note hearing moved up. Judge may want live participant testimony. He draws a tiny mustard bottle and crosses it out. I almost smile. Week 4. Amends. Not sorry. Schedule plus receipts. Columns names. Dates. Amounts. Proof. Wind moves flags. Not foundations. I say, show calendars. Transfers. Calls. Barrett's spine list repay pledge cancelletto. 2 diviso per $5. 0, 0, 0 with receipts. Call #34. Admitly. Add interest. Handwritten apology to Evelyn. Board statement naming actions no misunderstanding. Public corrective actions. Resign. We rehearse calls. Darius pushes him off the script. He chooses plain words and lands it. Courthouse Friday. Lila testifies in fax attendance. Assignments. Logs. Checks. Prosecutor asks about sincerity. We measure behavior. She says, behavior leaves a trail. The judge replies, participant statement Barrett stands. I lied. I forged. I hid behind words like momentum. I paid back money, that's math. I'm doing amends, that's schedule. I can't give trust back on a calendar. I can only stop stealing it. Hands shaking. Not performance. I confirm 2 items. No objectives. The judge rules fines. Restitution. Community service. Complete the program with an exemplary record. Quarterly verified amends for a year. Outside. A reporter, statement Barrett. No show today. We keep walking. Saturday. We fix Grandma's porch rail together. He works without narrating. He opens his trunk gala banners. We choose one to keep as a reminder. Recycle the rest. He texts the board. A photo I'm done with spectacle. Here is proof. It doesn't feel like a climax. He says, it isn't. I say, it's just not a joke anymore. Exit plan. After the room. The world. 4 boxes. People divided by routines, divided by money, divided by triggers. Call before the worst version of you clocks in. I say, boredom saves lives. Pick 2 daily boring things. Barrett writes, ledger check, 7p, m, and no narrating other people's work. We hand out cards program number on one side. You are not your best story. You are your next decision. He pockets his, like a pledge. No ceremony. Just a typed certificate and a steady handshake. I'll give this to her. He says of Grandma. To file? Not post. A storm tests the roof. It holds. It sounds friendly when you're not scared. Grandma says, dinner. Before we eat, Barrett says, I am sorry I misled them. Then, to Grandma, I am sorry I used your name like a key. Not a speech. A bridge. He deletes his accounts, no more performative progress. At the pantry, he shows up with sleeves. Not microphones. Some accept amends. Some don't. He fixes his side of the door. He brings me the last banner's thank you card. I pin it to the fridge with a lemon magnet gratitude. Not applause. The next cohort arrives. New ledgers. Same mustard jar. now empty. Clean. Blue ribbon from Grandma. Lila's sticky note. Your mother thanks you for no fireworks. I keep Grandma's $10 gas money tucked in my notebook. Still unspent. Barrett's quarterly receipts. Email arrives. Scans. Stomps. Schedule set. Boring and beautiful. On Grandma's birthday, Barrett steps back and lets me cut the cake. Non erachon. Knife slides a clean line. If you've got a Barrett, or you've been one, say the heavy words. Schedule the boring parts. Wash the cloth even if the ghost stays. Starting line. I am sorry I misled them. Then call. Mail. Sweep. A photo pings my phone, Grandma's porch. Sunlight on the rail. Holding steady. Barrett writes, "Oh good. Keep going." I reply, "The work is long. The work is small. The work holds." Story 2. I kept my parents in the dark about my duplex purchase. After they learned, they made plans for my sister's whole family to come in with me at no cost. I said nothing. When they passed by a few weeks later, they discovered that my cousin was now residing there. They went nuclear. Okay. Reddit. 3 items are worshipped by my parents. My sister Brooklyn. The opinions of their neighbors. And anybody who helps them seem good at church. Get your munchies. It's going to be enjoyable. I'm Billy. A 9-year-old man who makes a profession by climbing electrical wires and essentially standing in for everything they act as if doesn't exist when they want to impress others. Brooklyn, my 2-year-old sister, has 2 children from a man who disappeared after learning. I was expecting, as a child, I was the fallback option. My parents consistently undervalued my accomplishments and treated me like trash. It became worse when I decided to work with my hands rather than sitting in a posh office. The prize kid, on the other hand, was Brooklyn, whom they flaunted like a show dog. My parents made it into a powerful tale of a single mother when she was knocked pregnant at the age of 23. I received lectures about how I was restricting myself and why I couldn't be more like Brooklyn's boyfriend Scott when I chose trade school over college debt. Scott. My parents pretended that this guy had created fire as he sold expensive boxes to seniors. Every family meal became a performance by Scott. Scott made another sale. Brooklyn got an automobile from Scott. Billy. Scott believes you need to try your hand at real estate. Wearing those annoying polo shirts? The man drove a white BMW with vanity plates that said, "Sold it." He spoke about his pipeline as if he were transporting oil across Alaska. When they put this bully at the head of the table for Dad's 60th birthday party in his own home, I stopped going. As they kissed Scott's butt and questioned him about market trends, Dad sat on the side like a guest. At my father's birthday dinner, Scott really made a toast about leveraging real estate partnerships to produce wealth. You should learn from him instead of being useless like this. My parents remarked to me as they cornered me that evening. I left during dessert and wasn't seen again for 8 months. My family never figured out this. Storms and power line climbing pay off handsomely. If you're ready to put in 16-hour days while everyone else is complaining about the weather, storm labor alone may earn you $40. $000 per month. I was living in a subpar studio, driving a beat-up Silverado, eating like a college student, and stacking every extra dollar while Brooklyn was sharing pictures from Scott's Pulu. But he had a plan. Purchase real estate, accumulate wealth, and never rely on those who have made me feel like a piece of trash. 2 years of diligence paid off. I can pinpoint the precise time I reached my savings target, following a 72-hour refurbishment. I'm sitting in my vehicle. The clothes are still wet. I'm using my phone to check my bank balance. 37 yuan. Ling ling ling. Enough to cover the down payment I had been working so hard to get. In Riverside, I discovered a duplex. Solid bones. But an older neighborhood. Each apartment has 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. Ideal for earning money while I'm living there. Constructed in 1987. The foundation was really strong, but it needed some cosmetic improvement. The kind of home that would pay for itself and increase in value. 185美元. 0 inches total. I had to put down $37. Ling ling ling. Kept it a secret. Not Brooklyn. Not my parents. Rick, my cousin, was the only one who knew. To me, Rick is like a brother. We respect each other. For 3 years, he had been taken advantage of by a slum ruler. Rent increases every few months. Mold issues. A terrible apartment. The typical, but with construction pay, that's all he could afford. He inquired if he might rent from me after I indicated that I was looking at investment property. 100元. 200 is the market rate. Nothing personal. Just business. A Tuesday in October was the closing day. After signing documents and obtaining keys, I stood in the vacant space and thought to myself, about dang time. I then gave Rick a call. It's finished. It's about time. When will it be available for us to view? Does this weekend work? Celeste and Rick arrived with their twin sons. Before they had even moved in, Celeste had sent cookies that afternoon, along with a letter that said, "Thanks for being a good landlord." 2 weeks later, Rick took up residence. First month plus a cash deposit. No talis about soba. Don't waste your time on family discounts. Without damaging anything, the twins assisted with moving boxes. Celeste requested permission before beginning a little garden. This rent was paid on time for 3 months with no issues. Keep quiet. Children. I really enjoyed it. 100元. 100 a month for a mortgage. Rick pays $1. 200 inches rent. As I built equity, I was essentially living for free. By Thanksgiving, the property was now worth $195. Ling ling ling. After Thanksgiving, everything went completely wrong. 2 days before to Thanksgiving, Mom phoned. For the first time since August. "Hello, my love. Thursday, dinner is at 330. You are greatly missed by Brooklyn and the children." It wasn't strange at all that Brooklyn missed me. But I came up because I'm a fool. As soon as I entered, I could see the arrangement. Dad was pacing about as if he was awaiting the results of a cancer test. Brooklyn seems to have been weeping as she sits on the sofa. The real estate prints are missing. I hung up my jacket and asked. Brooklyn's expression fell. Mom gave me a sidelong glance. "Scott." "Oh," Dad remarked. "They're taking some time apart. Separating for a while." "Huh." Scott apparently quit because he was sick of acting like the father of someone else's children. The children were also present. Fiona uses broken crayons to color. Theo using an old iPad. Dinner was rather weird, as if it were poison. Brooklyn picked at her meal. The children were grumpy and incessantly asked when they might return to Scott's house. Uncomfortable. Additionally, my parents continued to communicate telepathically as if they were preparing an intervention, like he was giving himself medicine for what was about to happen. Dad continued to refill his juice glass every 10 minutes. When Mom pulled out the nice cutlery, I should have seen something was wrong. Only around Christmas, Easter, and significant manipulation efforts was such content released. Mom finally made her move after a horse had been choked by too much unpleasant small conversation. Rick said that you purchased a property. It was there. Somewhere. They had surrounded Rick and forced the information from him. "Yeah," he responded. "A duplex in Riverside." I agreed and bided my time until the guilt trip began. Brooklyn raised her head from her meal. Having rental income is quite wise. It's funny. She would have referred to it as being a slumlord 6 months ago. Real estate looked different now that she was poor, and Scott had rejected her. You rent upstairs and live downstairs. Trying to seem informal, Dad inquired. It operates that way. My parents should make more eye contact. Mom went on. You see, Billy, Brooklyn's in a tough spot right now. Her current place won't work past next week. Brooklyn responded. I was thinking, before assuming her phony nice voice, perhaps I could spend a few weeks with you and the kids. Obviously, Rick said, I'll pay the rent. Obviously, like she'd ever paid for anything in her life. The upstairs is occupied. Mom rushed in as if she had anticipated this. But you're by yourself below. Brooklyn and the children may stay here for the time being. You may keep them. And there it was. They wanted me to give up half of my home so she could live with me and her children while I continued to make mortgage payments. Housing in Brooklyn is free. Children are given stability. And while she works things out, I get to be the live babysitter. What not taking place? Quiet. The father's voice. Displeased. Then came out. This is family. Son, we ought to support one another. And I am aware Rick is upstairs for that reason. Brooklyn's cheeks flushed. You really handed it to Rick. Rick rented it from me. He's a decent renter. However, I am your sister. What about Rick? Are you serious? Rick is also my cousin. What the heck? At that moment, she began to weep. Actual tears. While Dad gave me his champion-level dismay, Mom rushed in to console her. We believed you would assist the family, as if Brooklyn were 5. Mom stroked her hair. I'm supporting my family. Rick's relatives. You understand what we mean. Yes. I was aware, since Rick was not a member of their dysfunctional group, he was not included. He wasn't playing their mind games. He was simply the cousin who worked in construction. I departed before to desert. Didn't bid farewell. I just picked up my jacket and left. I never ate the greatest pumpkin pie. With nothing else to do, my folks became suburban stalkers after Thanksgiving. Rick was the first to warn me. Your mother came by 3 times yesterday. Dude. Celeste saw her snapping photos while parked across the street. Images of what everything, the mailbox, the vehicles, and the home. She stepped outside and took close-ups as if she were recording proof. Then came the SMS campaign. Actual psychological warfare. Mom went through Riverside today. Many shady vehicles. Are you certain it's secure? I'm scared about you being there by yourself. Brooklyn. The crime rate is rising. Perhaps think again. And the children will make the room lively. Don't they? With yells and spits. I'm worried about the property prices there. Dad. Son. Before becoming too involved, you may want to do some research. Yes. The neighborhood had good schools and values that had increased by 30% in only 5 years. The dubious vehicles were construction trucks that belonged to contractors who made money. The monitoring became more intense. Rick began taking notes as if we were in a spy film. 2:00 p.m. on Monday. Your mother parked alone for 15 minutes and made notes. 4:00 p.m. on Tuesday. Your father is driving slowly while gazing at the windows. Wednesday at 6 o'clock. Brooklyn with the children. For 30 minutes. I sat in the vehicle. All 3 in your dad's vehicle on Thursday. The whole street was walked by your mother. Brooklyn was back on Friday. But this time they were filming. Billy. Jesus. Your mother arrived at 7:00 a.m. on Saturday. Who conducts surveillance at 7:00 a.m. on a Saturday? They were building a case, collecting evidence that Rick shouldn't be there, that Brooklyn deserved the place by divine right, or whatever nonsense they'd cooked up. I started wondering if they were documenting Rick's work schedule, counting cars in the driveway, timing when the kids got home from school, It was getting creepy as heck. The breaking point came in December. I was fixing storm damage to the fence when Celeste came out to get mail. She was 8 months pregnant. Moving slow, one hand on her back. Morning. Billy. Thanks for that gate latch yesterday. The boys were worried about the yard being secure for when the baby comes. Celeste was the perfect tenant. Paid early. Kept the place spotless. Actually improved things with her little projects. The twins were respectful, helped with yard work, and never made me regret renting to a family. Rather of contacting me, Rick repaired their toilet himself when it began to run. I heard it at that point. The car door across the street slammed much too forcefully. Brooklyn stood near her dilapidated vehicle, recording everything. The phone goes out. Celeste seems perplexed as to why she was being filmed. "Who's that?" inquired Celeste. "Just ignore my sister," Brooklyn said. But she couldn't stop. "I'm Brooklyn, Billy's sister. If you don't remember me," Celeste, being a decent person, welcomed herself politely. "So, think you're renting upstairs from Billy," she said to Celeste, her phone still rolling, as if she were some investigative reporter or something. "Hello there," she said in that fake sweet voice that made my teeth hurt. "Yes. We adore this place. He's been fantastic." "Interesting. You see, Billy chose to offer this home to you, even though I was originally meant to rent it. You know, family drama." Celeste's expression shifted. She glanced at Brooklyn, and then at me, seeing that she had entered a family crisis. "I'm confident he had valid reasons," Celeste remarked tactfully. "Family should come first, in my opinion. Do you agree? Blood is more resilient than water. However, I suppose that some individuals value money above family." With the hammer still in my hand, I moved between them at that moment. "What on earth are you doing?" Brooklyn, just chatting with Celeste in a pleasant manner. "Do you have a problem while filming on my land? What are you doing?" "In your opinion, I am on the pavement. That belongs to the public domain. Anything I desire may be documented. Now, go off my street and away from my renter." She grinned as if she had found what she was looking for. She had her footage. Whatever narrative she was conjuring up in her mind, probably wondering what type of family turmoil she had wandered into. Celeste was frightened. Celeste appeared very concerned when Brooklyn departed. "Billy, if our presence is creating issues, it isn't. She's just upset because she didn't receive what she wanted." However, that was untrue. This would not go away, and things were about to become a lot worse. 2 pieces of news in December completely upended everything. The first was the early arrival of Rick and Celeste's kid on a Tuesday evening. The call came in around 2:00 a.m. The water in Celeste broke. She was being driven to the hospital by Rick. Could I keep an eye on the twins till his mother-in-law arrived? Grace is the name given to the lovely little girl. I delivered groceries the first week. Helped Rick put up the crib. Right? Witnessed this macho construction man transform into mush, hugging his kid. "Man, thanks for everything." Rick replied with Grace sleeping in his arms. Having a steady house, knowing we won't be forced out or have rent hiked up. It means everything when you're trying to offer your kids something solid. Rick had been jumping between bad apartments for years, never knowing whether the landlord would sell or hike the rent. Now he could plan ahead, save money, and offer his kids stability. This wasn't simply business anymore. This was providing excellent people a basis. Meanwhile, Brooklyn's world was disintegrating. The specifics came via Mom's church gossip, conversations I overheard as I serviced their garbage disposal. Scott hadn't simply ditched Brooklyn. He'd publicly embarrassed her at some real estate awards banquet in front of half the business. Here's what occurred. When Brooklyn arrived, she thought Scott was going to pop the question. For months, She had been giving clues, discussing wedding locations, providing images of rings, and purchasing an expensive outfit. The outfit alone was $300. Persuaded that this would be her big break, she placed it on credit. That afternoon, she had even had her nails done. $80 for a complex design that looked well in the engagement pictures she intended to share. Scott, on the other hand, revealed his engagement to someone else. There was a mortgage broker who was truly organized, had her own home, had a job, other than selling scarves on the side, and drove her own vehicle rather than relying on a guy to bring her about. When the MC encouraged everyone to congratulate Scott and his stunning fiancée, Brooklyn found out, expecting her fairy tale moment. She stood just next to him in her $300 outfit. She reportedly compared the moment she recognized what was occurring, like seeing someone being struck by a vehicle in slow motion. There was a nuclear fallout. In front of 400 people, Brooklyn tossed her drink at Scott, yelled about years squandered and humiliated in public, was hauled out by security since it was being filmed by everyone. The footage circulated around all 3 counties' real estate offices by Monday. However, the public outcry was just the beginning. Assuming that Scott's wealth would last forever, Brooklyn had been living well beyond her means. The maximum credit card amount was $45. Ling, ling, ling. She couldn't afford the car payments on her BMW. When Scott interrupted her the day after the gala catastrophe, the children were attending a posh private school that cost $1, $500 a month each. All of the bills were due at once. First, she lost the BMW. The repo guys arrived at 6 a.m, and, with the neighbors looking on, hooked it up in Scott's driveway. After 3 months of non-payment, Fiona and Theo were expelled from the private school. Credit agencies then began phoning her on an hourly basis for money she had never had. 3 days prior to Christmas, Brooklyn moved back with my parents. She moved into their 2-bedroom ranch at the age of 32 with 2 bewildered children, sleeping on the couch while Fiona and Theo shared the guest room, which still contained my high school football trophies. While her parents paid for everything, the woman who 6 months ago posted selfies in the pool and sported designer bags was now doing laundry at their home. On Christmas Eve, Mom called in tears. "Billy, she's having so much trouble. The kids are confused about leaving school and friends. It's just temporary, till she gets back on her feet. Maybe she should get a job," I said while fixing their kitchen pipe. Dead quiet. Then she's trying, but with her communications background and no recent experience, it's hard finding something that pays enough. Communications background. She'd worked part-time at some boutique, selling scarves before Scott started paying for everything. That was her entire resume. But somehow she was too good for entry-level work and not qualified for anything decent. Plenty of jobs don't need experience. Retail, restaurants, call centers. Billy, she can't work those jobs. She has children to consider, and those don't pay enough for childcare and living expenses. Translation: Brooklyn was too good for the jobs normal people work, the same jobs I'd worked before becoming alignment, the same jobs most single mothers work without complaining about being above manual labor. By January, every conversation circled back to her desperate situation and my empty upstairs unit. It's not empty. I reminded Mom. Rick lives there. Well, yes, but Rick could find somewhere else if he wanted to help family. Your sister needs it more than he does. Why would he do that? He's got a lease. Pays $1. $200 on time. Been a perfect tenant. You know what I mean. Son, I knew exactly what she meant. Rick didn't count his real family because he wasn't part of their dysfunction. Just like me. February brought the dumbest move Brooklyn ever made, which is saying something considering her track record of spectacularly bad decisions. She didn't just rant on Facebook. She went all out with social media warfare. extensive character assassination intended to ruin my reputation and humiliate me in public in order to subdue me. Began with a post on Facebook. She tagged half the county, including those who hadn't spoken to our family in years, and referred to it as when your brother chooses money over family. As if it were proof of some crime, the post included street-side photos of my duplex, screenshots of our private texts, images of Rick's truck in the driveway, and even Celeste's herb garden. The text, however, was the true masterpiece. 200 words of outright deception. I'm going through the most difficult period of my life. As some of you are aware, what you don't know is that rather than helping his sister and kids who are now homeless, my own brother purchased a duplex and decided to rent it to strangers. She was living with my parents as a renter, receiving 3 meals a day and cable. But she was undoubtedly homeless. I'm not requesting alms, like everyone else. I offered to pay fair market rent. However, it seems that when there is money to be made, blood is meaningless. Reasonable market rent. The woman who hadn't paid her own expenses for 4 years was going to start earning $200 a month out of thin air. I find it heartbreaking that my kids sleep in their grandparents' small guest room while their uncle gets rent from people he doesn't care about. After 10 years of attending every family event, Rick was now an unknown person. Celeste was a stranger who brought my parents soup when Dad was sick with the flu. I was a stranger to the twins, who called me Uncle Billy. I suppose I now understand my place in the family's hierarchy. Family walks, money talks, the greed of some people knows no bounds. I was tagged by her, brought Rick and Celeste into her public outburst by tagging them, tag Scott, high school classmates, church whores, mutual friends, and extended family because nothing says I'm over it, like bringing up your ex and family drama. The post exploded, which was even worse. Guys, take a moment. This new hype feature was just released by YouTube. Press the hype button if this story has captured your attention. It tells YouTube that this video is worthy of going viral and keeps you inundated with even more bizarre stories. I sincerely appreciate your support. Okay, let's get back to the drama. Her mother's friends and churchwomen called me callous in 89 comments in 4 hours. To prove she was a victim, the typical suspects lined up. Melissa, a high school friend. Some people don't care about their family. I had never heard of this woman. I don't trust landlords because of this. One of her old boutique coworkers. Brooklyn is a very kind individual. This is not fair to her. However, some users asked pointed questions that Brooklyn was unable to quickly remove, like other single mothers. Why doesn't she have a place of her own? Aren't your cousins also family? He should move for her. But why? What became of the man she was constantly posting about? There is nowhere in the entire city for 2 adults and 2 children. How is it to be homeless and live with your parents? Hold on. Wasn't it about 6 months ago that she posted about lavish dinners and spa days? Although Brooklyn quickly removed those comments, screenshots remain forever. In private messages, people began sharing the removed comments and inquiring about the true story. 30 people in 3 counties shared the post. I received messages from people I hadn't spoken to since high school, inquiring as to whether or not I had actually caused my sister's homelessness. My coworkers began inquiring about my family's circumstances. Pete, my boss, found out about it via his wife's Facebook page. Hey Billy, are you being followed around by some drama? According to a post my wife saw, you are a slumlord. My sister is upset that I refuse to provide her with free housing. Oh, don't say anything else. Family, according to some, equates to free money. But Brooklyn wasn't finished. The next day, she stepped up her efforts. Update. I've been asked why I don't just get a place of my own. This is the truth. After my ex left us, I'm a single mother working in retail and attempting to start over. In addition to the first, last, and security deposit. Rent requires income that I do not yet have. That's $4,000, plus what I don't have while working in retail and providing for my 2 kids alone. She had spent 12 days at Target. If my brother allowed us to rent his vacant apartment, this problem could be resolved overnight. Rather, he would prefer to make money off of strangers while his family suffers. This is the appearance of greed. The unit is empty. It seemed that Rick's 5-member family was invisible. Celeste called from her legal practice at that moment. Before she removed the actual questions, Billy, I took a screenshot of everything. The partners believe you have a defamation case after I showed them. It seemed nuclear, but it went too far to have my private conversations made public for hundreds of strangers to see. My company misrepresented to harm my reputation. And Rick and Celeste completely removed. What would that entail? First, stop and desist. She apologizes in public, removes the posts, and stops making untrue claims. We will file for defamation, harassment, and invasion of privacy if she doesn't comply. Brooklyn's response to the 4-page cease and desist was to go full martyr on social media, essentially saying, "Shut up, delete everything, apologize publicly, or face serious financial consequences." The second update: now that I've exposed my brother's greed, he's threatening to sue me. I suppose protecting family secrets is more significant than ensuring the survival of the family. When you confront influential people who believe that their wealth makes them untouchable, this is what happens. I owned 1 duplex and climbed power lines. A real estate tycoon in her hallucinations, that was the end of it. The case was taken on pro bono by Celeste's firm. Brooklyn was served during her shift at Target within a week. Defamation, harassment, invasion of privacy, and a restraining order that forbids her from contacting Rick or Celeste, posting about me on social media, or coming within 200 yards of my property. Every penny this would ultimately cost her was worth the expression on her face when those documents were delivered in front of her coworkers and clients. When my parents learned of the lawsuit, they went completely crazy. Have you gone crazy? Billy, is your sister being sued by you? I had to keep my phone away from my ear over Facebook posts because Mom's scream was so loud. She harassed my tenants, posted private conversations, and publicly defamed me. That isn't a family dispute. She was simply venting and upset. That's what everyone does. Naturally, Dad continued in a dissatisfied tone. This has gone too far. Son, family doesn't sue family for nonsense on social media. Family members also don't violate privacy or commit defamation. However, here we are. She is 32 years old, and your sister, it's time she gained some knowledge. The lawsuit worked like magic. But they hung up on me. Brooklyn abruptly stopped talking about her housing situation, deleted everything, and deactivated Facebook. She was momentarily terrified by the cease and desist. I got my reputation back. Anyone who accepted Brooklyn's sob story without hearing both sides wasn't worth my time anyhow. And those who mattered knew the truth. The duration was precisely 8 weeks. The news that April brought should have been positive. Brooklyn found employment. She was hired as a Target cashier instead of the communications job she had been hoping for. $12 per hour. Part-time. No benefits. She had believed for years that this type of work was beneath her, with a voice full of fake pride, as if Brooklyn had won a Nobel Prize. Mom called to give the update. She is putting in a lot of effort to change the situation. Her work ethic and positive attitude have already been noted by the managers. Brooklyn was reportedly management material in Mom's fantasy world after 2 weeks of scanning barcodes. However, those who have lived in luxury for too long tend to be humbled by reality. Brooklyn's retail job required her to stand for 8 hours in awful shoes, deal with rude customers who treated her like trash, learn product codes, and return home exhausted to two grumpy children in her parents' small home. When it came to actual physical labor, the martyr act became stale. And you know what? It was a 6-week job. She lost her job due to arguments with customers, excessive sick leave, and what her manager described as attitude issues. Brooklyn reportedly told a customer that she had more pressing issues than their dairy concerns after they complained about expired milk. By June, she had resumed sending offensive texts from whatever juice her mother had stashed in the kitchen. I hope you get a good night's sleep, knowing that your niece and nephew share a closet-sized room. Even though Rick isn't your biological family, you can use that as an excuse for your greed. Because of all the stress you've put on this family, Dad is experiencing chest pains. The last one was utter bullshit. I made a direct call to Dad. Pains in the chest, are you all right? What? No. I'm all right. Why Brooklyn claimed that the stress of your family was causing your heart issues. A long pause, followed by a weary sigh. Your sister has been creative lately, but you know I still adore her. Son, the abuse went beyond offensive texts. She began phoning my workplace and attempting to fire me by alleging that I was operating unlawful rentals, failing to pay taxes, breaking codes, discriminating against families, and doing anything else she could think of to harm my career. Following that week's 4th complaint, my boss, Pete, summoned me into his office. There's a serious grudge against you. Billy, they called and said you were involved in some sort of slumlord business. Everything is recorded and lawful. Are you looking for documents? No. I have faith in you. Just so you know, whoever this is sounds utterly insane. They made 3 calls to HR yesterday, alleging that you discriminate against mothers who are single. You might want to keep an eye on your back. And the calls were becoming increasingly imaginative. Brooklyn called and said I was harassing tenants, subletting illegally, and not keeping the property up to code. She even called to report suspicious activity at my address while posing as a worried neighbor. The woman believed she could play anonymous tipster because she had seen enough law and order. It dawned on me then that Brooklyn was more than just desperate. The woman was prepared to ruin my livelihood in order to feel better because she had nothing left to lose. When I told Celeste about the harassment at work, she agreed. Billy, she's getting worse. She was not deterred by a social media lawsuit. She is now pursuing your employment. What comes next? The next week, we learned, at 3 a.m, I returned home from storm restoration, exhausted after 18 hours of nonstop work and freezing rain to discover my fence painted in bright red by a rapacious jerk. Large block letters intended to cause the greatest amount of public humiliation are prominently displayed from the street. However, she made a critical error. Rick had installed a security camera following the social media incident, but she had forgotten about it. The video was incredibly clear. At 2:17 a.m., Brooklyn was skulking around my property, believing she was some social justice activist, damaging the evil landlord's fence with a can of Rust-Oleum Red. She even gave the camera her full attention as if she were pleased with her illegal masterpiece. Her face was clearly visible to you. Watching her take a step back and appreciate her work as if she had just completed the Sain Chapel was the highlight. Before heading back to her car, she actually took a selfie with the graffiti in the background. At 3:15 a.m., I made a police call. At 7:30 a.m., the arrest took place. Brooklyn was preparing for another interview for a job. While my mother yelled about police harassment, 2 police officers arrived at my parents' door, called her by name, and cuffed her there while she was wearing her interview attire. The accusations were grave. Her record includes criminal harassment, vandalism, and restraining order violations. It turned out that during her time at Scott, She had twice been arrested for shoplifting. A slap on the wrist was not what this was going to be. Before posting bail, Brooklyn was held in county lockup for 3 days. To cover her lawyer's $15,000 retainer, which they most certainly did not have. Mom and Dad took out a second mortgage. Take a moment to process that. Brooklyn vandalized my house. So my parents risked their house to get her out of jail. However, that wasn't the end either. Brooklyn concluded that her power cannot be curtailed by restraining orders. At that point, the entire situation completely went haywire. On a Saturday morning, Rick called down from his window as I was replacing the damaged fence sections. "Your sister is parked on the other side of the street. Billy. She has been sitting there looking at the house for 40 minutes. I raised my head from my drill. Brooklyn was indeed in her beaten-up car, looking at my property as if she were preparing an invasion. She couldn't be within 200 yards. According to the restraining order, for what length of time, prior to my departure for my Saturday job, Celeste is becoming anxious. The twins want to know why that woman is always keeping an eye on our home. This was no accident. While I was out working, Brooklyn was purposefully breaking the law because she knew exactly where it was. That's where she wanted me to see her. Wanted me to know that she was not intimidated by court orders. Without hesitation, I dialed 911. Police are required for a violation of a restraining order. In flagrant defiance of court orders, the subject is parked across from my address. Details were taken by the dispatcher. Vehicle description, case number, and address. En route officers. Avoid bringing up the topic. 8 minutes later, Brooklyn was still seated when 2 patrol cars arrived. She didn't act like she was just passing through or try to get away. She sat there as if she wanted to be a martyr and was defying them to arrest her. And they did. She was already facing criminal charges, and they immediately arrested her for violating protection orders. Instead of county jail time, she would be facing actual prison time this time. I'm sorry. My parents finally broke up at that point. At 7 in the morning, they arrived at my door, the following Sunday. Both of them appearing to have aged 10 years in just 1 month. Mom's tears made her eyes swell. When his daughter committed suicide, Dad appeared to be watching his retirement dreams fall apart. Mom said, "Please," before I could even extend an invitation to them. According to the attorney, she faces a minimum sentence of 18 months due to her record and the infractions. She's going to prison. Real prison. Not county jail. Note: arrests for shoplifting in Brooklyn weren't made by young people. In her 20s, she had been caught stealing twice. But Scott used high-priced attorneys and sealed documents to get the charges dropped. A pattern was beginning to emerge for the judges. Dad said, "You have to drop the charges," in a disparity manner, because she broke the restraining order within a week of posting bail. She's disparity. Son, people do stupid things when they're backed into a corner. The kids need their mother. Has she learned her lesson? She's learned her lesson. Mom took hold of my arm and said, "I think the kids are better off without her psycho ass. Whatever you want, we'll pay you. Make this disappear. Please." What does E use to pay me? You mortgaged your home to cover her bail. So you don't have any money. They appeared to be totally defeated. Broken. These weren't the parents who had denigrated me, humiliated me at family dinners, treated me like the backup child, and spent decades comparing me negatively to Scott. 2 elderly parents were frightened as they watched their beloved child ruin herself, bring down the entire family. I almost felt sorry for them for a second. Nearly. Then our relationship ended forever when Mom said those words. "You won't see us ever again if you don't drop these charges. To this family, you will be dead. Do you believe that having money can make you valuable without us? You are nothing." Correct. I had felt dead for 30 years because of those same people. I closed the door in their faces after saying, "Deal." It was a mercifully short trial. Brooklyn entered a guilty plea to all charges: criminal harassment, vandalism, defamation, and repeated infractions of court orders. With video evidence and numerous witnesses, her lawyer, for whom my parents mortgaged their home, told her that fighting was futile. The judge sentenced her to 400 hours of community service, 18 months, suspended to 2 years probation, and full compensation for my property damage and legal fees. In all, Bamayan, 500 was spent on legal fees, court expenses, and the embarrassment of entering a guilty plea. She was also required to post on Facebook for 30 days and write a public apology. It was nearly worth the months of harassment to watch her sulk in front of the same people who had attempted to turn against me. However, my parents continued to manipulate me. After sentencing, they attempted one last guilt trip, but it didn't work out. They arrived with Fiona and Theo, making a final, desperate attempt at emotional blackmail with the children. Uncle Billy. Before Brooklyn violently grabbed Fiona's arm, she began to run in my direction. In front of the children, Brooklyn warned her own daughter not to touch him. "We suffer because of him." It was very wealthy. They are being coached to view me as the bad guy behind their mother's self-inflicted catastrophe. I realized then that I had made the right decision in every way. All 3 of them were arrested for trespassing and breaking the restraining order after I called the police right away. Brooklyn was also charged with entangling children in criminal activity. As Fiona and Theo sobbed in bewilderment, presumably wondering why the adults in their lives kept getting arrested, I last saw any of them through my window as they were loaded into squad cars. The following week, Child Protective Services launched an investigation. 2 years have passed since then. There has been nothing but golden silence. Upstairs, Rick's family is still having a great time. The twins, who are now 12 years old, and honor roll students, and assist me with yard work and refer to it as property management education. Despite the fact that I am actually her second cousin, Grace is talking, walking, and referring to me as Uncle Billy. I didn't even think twice when Rick asked about enlarging the basement. Instead of damaging your property, these tenants make improvements. Using a sledgehammer, Rick spent 3 weekends down there removing debris and old concrete, installing new electrical, installing proper drainage, and building walls that were square in shape. Celeste is expecting her 4th child. I said yes right away when they asked if I could finish a portion of the basement for an additional bedroom. And I deducted $200 from my rent to help pay for supplies. Rick insisted on handling everything. Transform that basement into a scene from home renovation programs. The value of the property increased by an additional $30. Ling ling ling. This is the face of family. Respect for one another. Those who arrive without being invited. Make timely debt payments. Treat your property as though it were your own. Kindness should not be interpreted as weakness. I painted the entire space, added stainless steel appliances to the kitchen, and constructed a workshop with adequate electrical in the garage. Property's now worth $275. Ling ling ling. Which is 60% more than what I paid for them 3 years ago. I've amassed more wealth in 36 months from equity gains and rental income than my parents did in 30 years of being cautious. After expenses, the monthly cash flow is $1. eBay, that's $13. 200 inches passive income annually. In addition, I essentially live on rent in a home that increases in value each month. This place will easily be worth $350. 000 by the age of 35. Brooklyn. She continues to live in that small ranch with my parents, working part-time in retail until she loses her job due to her bad attitude. Quotes about toxic people who distance themselves from family members over money and betrayal are still being posted. Due to the trauma they experience from witnessing their mother's repeated arrests, The children attend therapy twice a week. My parents are impoverished, resentful, and likely perplexed as to how their retirement turned into full-time childcare. Their daughter, who stocks, shelves, and places the blame for her issues on everyone else, has 2 traumatized grandchildren. They have 15 years remaining on the second mortgage they took out for Brooklyn's legal fees at a rate of 7 BFNJR until they turn 75. They will be making $100 a month. And me? Building wealth for generations. Sleeping like a baby every night in a house I own outright. And completely indebted. They claimed that I would be killed for prioritizing boundaries over family manipulation. Story 2, I received the message uninviting me, shortly after they sent the invitation on a Tuesday. The envelope had the thickness, cream color, and gold filigree that you would expect from an Ivy League wedding or a senator's fundraiser. The front said, Bristow Family Reunion, Fairmont Hotel, San Francisco, August 15, 7 p.m. I didn't open it. Not necessary. The name of the hotel was too familiar. It was listed under the Elite Partners Platinum tier on my tablet's client list. That was my electronic signature, verifying the reservation on the contract. My cousin Olivia, who is always the unofficial family coordinator, buzzed a message on my phone a few moments later. The one with the courteously wrapped bad news. Hello, Lila. Just so you know, this year's Fairmont is completely booked. It will be a formal event with many guests arriving by plane. I hope it works for you. The emoji. The unspoken symbol of exclusion. Not a complete rejection. A courteous erasure only. I had previously seen this. Birthday invitations never came. During career announcements, my name was silently removed from group chats. I was never called a failure. They simply acted as though I didn't exist. I went back to my desk. The San Francisco skyline glowed in a misty haze as the rain pattered softly against the window of my 27th floor corner office. My screen still displayed the Bristol event contract. Olivia made the reservation via my concierge platform at the Fairmont Hotel. It had been flagged for approval by our assistant for last-minute, high-profile reservations. I personally approved a 30% premium. They were unaware that the same girl who used to work late into the night cleaning hotel rooms was now the CEO of Morgan Properties, which owns 15 historic buildings across Northern California. Unpredictably, lost cause was what they continued to whisper. Let them speak. I never desired their acceptance. The night was mine. I walked over to the bookshelf and took out a tiny black frame that was hidden behind my business books. There was a battered plastic badge inside. Lila Housekeeping. San Francisco. Grand Pacific Hotel. Launseling Ishasan. That night, I placed it prominently on my desk to remind myself why I had said yes to myself when everyone else had said no, even though I hadn't seen it in years. There are 2 kinds of people in this world. According to my mother, those who inherit names and those who carry legacies. After supper, when the wine had relaxed her speech, she would whisper it. We were supposed to, not as though everything he said was legally binding. When I first realized what my role was, I was 11 years old. The burden, not the name. They intended for me to join Morgan Capital as a junior associate by the time I turned 24. My name was already on the door of an office. Morgan. Lila. Business plan. Less than a year passed. I asked the wrong questions. Not because I didn't succeed. Inquiries concerning layoffs. No one provided an explanation regarding the outsourcing of janitorial staff or the long-term employees' disappearance of their retirement fund. Your thinking is too limited. From behind his desk of polished oak, my father let out a bark. You're blind. No, I replied. All I'm interested in is what people carry. Our last meaningful conversation ended there. Our relationship shifted to a quiet distance after that. Birthdays are disregarded, and texts are not read. I enrolled in and graduated first in my class from San Francisco State University's Hospitality Management program. Not one member of the family appeared. I was cleaning rooms at a dilapidated motel close to Market Street a year later. Each shift has 10 rooms. Wet linen and towels that smelled like bleach. However, it was truthful. I started from scratch when building it. No freebies. Olivia sent me the wedding picture from her reception at that point. Everyone was glowing. Smiling faces. Sparkling champagne. And tailored suits. Even though I wasn't in the photo, I can still clearly recall that evening. A dishwasher was on break, and the DJ had left early. So I sat at a table close to the kitchen. Olivia explained that it was because I appeared more at ease there. A screenshot of a family group chat showed up in my inbox 2 days later. A picture with a caption of my old housekeeping badge. Cleaning rooms was her goal. She must have gotten what she wanted. They chuckled. Nobody raised their voice. Not even Aunt Marlene. "You don't have to be like the others," said the aunt, who once gave me lemon drops in a whisper. I discovered that day, not all erasure is loud or furious. Sometimes there is silence. You sit far from the head of the table, get cropped out of enough pictures, leave off enough messages, and eventually start to question whether you were ever there at all. So I let it go. I started creating something that no one could ignore, instead of waiting for them to notice me. With only 3 months' worth of savings, an old laptop, and one duffel bag, I left San Francisco. There was only a desperate need for silence. No grand scheme. Somewhere, no one gave a damn about my family, and my last name was irrelevant. In Woodstock, Vermont, I rented a tiny attic room in a dilapidated farmhouse. May and Frank, an elderly couple who operated it, paid me in cash to take reservations, change linens, and deal with latecomers. I was given room 9, which had a single bed, a skylight that framed the stars, and a low, slanted ceiling. I adored it. That was the beginning of true solitude. The concept, not the company. I scrawled questions in a battered spiral notebook. What caused some visitors to return while others disappeared? Why would a stranger feel noticed in a place they had never been to before? Safe. I watched. I tried things out. A confused sign, a crooked bench, and a buzzing lamp. I made all the repairs without a budget. Just be mindful. Soon guests started asking for Lila. Not Miss Morgan. Miss Lila. When May and Frank decided to retire, I showed up with spreadsheets, market research, and a vision. I made an offer they accepted. I renamed it Maple House. My first property, my first real win, 5 rooms, no employees, just me. I poured my heart into it, scrubbing every floorboard, replacing musty curtains with linen panels, painting walls in soft shades of sage and cream on every nightstand. I left a handwritten card, "You're here now, you can rest." Guests remembered that line. I didn't hire a PR firm. I didn't need one. What did word of mouth do? No advertising effort could. Guests shared stories with their friends and raised awareness. Support came from attention. Not millions. Enough. But not overnight. I opened a second property, Maple Ridge, in less than 5 years. Then came a third, Maple Harbor, which was subtly superior to the larger resorts despite being smaller. I gave them titles, respect, and fair pay when I promoted former housekeepers to site managers. No rigid uniforms, just dignified, real work. Subscribe right away if you think that starting over and quiet strength are powerful. You won't want to miss what comes next, because Maple House's journey is just getting started. No hollow greetings. No phony smiles. Only those who proudly understood the true meaning of service. Never give in. By the time I turned 31, Maple House had subtly developed into a reputable brand of its own. Subtle luxury, careful consideration, no velvet ropes, no fountains made of marble, only true dignity. I've done correctly. I never signed my name on any of it. Though, under M.P., the properties were listed, Morgan Holdings. Most people thought the CEO was a man who was ideal for me. I wasn't hiding. I was defending my creation. I was able to make something they couldn't destroy because of the silence. I kept my old plastic badge behind my desk, tucked away between vendor catalogs and fabric samples. The center of Lila's housekeeping was faded, cracked, and scratched. It should have been replaced long ago, but I wore it for a long time, presented it simply, no glass, black frame, not affixed to any wall, just for me, not for show. I held it some nights after countless spreadsheets and signatures, to remember the foundation, not to relive the suffering. I didn't construct Maple House to make a statement. I made it to fit in. One of Vermont's most upscale boutique hotels, Maple Harbor, was their choice for the family reunion. They didn't know. The corporate portal was used to make the reservation for Maple Harbor. In the family conversation, Olivia boasted about using her connections to get the desired location. "We're very fortunate," she said. The manager at the front desk informed her that although the owner was very private, everything was expedited as soon as they saw the family name. They were correct. I personally approved the linen color scheme, doubled the staff, upgraded their service, imported fresh flowers, and expedited it myself. Naturally. Digitally. Remember to subscribe if you experience that silent moment of victory with me. When they eventually discover whose foundation they have been standing on, the next chapter begins. I hadn't signed a document in years. Of course, when you leave, silence is the best defense. Not a single fingerprint. S. Bristow was listed as the host on the reservation, which was made using Morgan Hospitality's elite tier. The irony could have broken glass. Hannah, our guest relations manager. He was reassigned to manage the account. Sophie was just another overly involved client who was fixated on spreadsheets and flower arrangements. She was intelligent, steady, and blissfully ignorant of family drama to Hannah. Sophie requested a custom floral arrangement with blue and white delphiniums and hydrangeas a week prior to the reunion. Hannah was summoned to my office. I told Hannah to be kind to them, but not gentle, curious. She cocked her head. "What are you saying? Don't treat them like delicate glass. Simply serve them as they would like to be served." Slowly, a knowing smile crept onto Hannah's face as she nodded. I didn't have to explain everything to her. I sent just one message that evening. "You're coming, Janine, and 2. Get there at 640. Avoid letting them in too soon." I saw the read receipt, but she didn't respond. That was sufficient. For the following 6 days, sleep was an uncommon visitor. I went over every aspect, including the menu options, signage, lighting cues, and room layout. I made one small adjustment at the last minute. Typically, a printed welcome note from the host family was placed in each guest suite. The card read this time, "We hope your visit serves as a reminder of your origins and what you never really lost." I didn't fully sign up. Layla. I didn't have to. On the day of the reunion, I didn't go through the front doors of the Grand. Rather, as I always did, I slipped in through the service entrance, passing carts full of fresh linens and trays of champagne glasses. Entering through the back door to enter the center of the house has a sacred quality. It helps you stay grounded. My outfit was navy, not wearing any jewelry. A hairpin, quite nicely. Nothing called out for attention. For me, The room did that. They arrived in pairs at 6:45 p.m., followed by small groups. All the nervous sparkle of people who are desperate to be noticed. From loud laughter to firm handshakes. Sophie, too, unaware that she was entering my home. She entered like a cruise director, grinning and waving. 10 minutes later, my father showed up with two strangers on either side. I instantly recognized sleepwatches, polished shoes, and finance types. The kind of men who use spreadsheets to build empires, but don't remember the janitors' names. From a tiny monitor hidden just past the kitchen hallway, I observed, present but hidden. I was not missed. The beauty of it was that no one searched for me anymore because I had been removed from their story so long ago. However, that was going to change. The ballroom lights dimmed just enough to silence the conversation and pique interest at precisely 7:15. Then the noise, 3 gentle chimes, slow and methodical. Sophie was in the middle of describing the personalized glassware, with a clipboard in hand and his customary cool professionalism. Our guest services manager, Everett, came over to her. The owner has asked that we start the welcome presentation right away. Miss Bristow, he said softly. The owner was perplexed by Sophie's blinks. Well, I don't believe that's required. I have been working with your office for weeks, and we have already expressed our gratitude to the staff. Usually, the owner doesn't do these things. Everett remained silent. All he did was turn to the stage. The screen came to life, white and crisp, with a soft navy background and a clean serif font. It's hard to miss. Layla Morgan, the CEO and CEO of P. Morgan Holdings, founded Maple Harbor. The space grew cold. Sophie's float broke on the marble floor after slipping out of her hands. The back did not speak, but my father's jaw tensed. There was a murmur. Hold on. What? Above the ballroom, I stepped onto the landing, baby dress poised and composed. Hairpin back. Heels. Clicking softly. I was just like the woman they said I would never be. Good night, I said in a calm, steady voice. I am aware that many of you were surprised to see me here tonight. Hold on. When the table attempted to laugh, there was a nervous chuckle. After all, you didn't invite me, letting the words hang. I said, however, I felt it was time for you to be properly welcomed to Maple Harbor. After all, I let my gaze roam the crowd. You're in my house right now. Mouths parted. Chairs shuffled. Rose whispers. Sophie moved forward apprehensively. The cheeks turned red. Crazy. What are you doing? Leela, she muttered. I looked into her cool, unblinking eyes. Just like you taught me. Entering. This hotel was reserved in your name, I said in a quiet but distinct voice. You stated that the Bristow name was the reason the owner showed you courtesy. Correct. That was accurate. I provided you with precisely what you requested, plus 20%. I spoke without flinching. That was the triumph. You talked about me for years, as if I were some far-off embarrassment. A dropout. A housekeeper. The girl who squandered her name. You said I vanished. I didn't go away. Though, they simply stopped observing. I looked around the room, bases, older, more rigid, motionless, and adorned with the fragile astonishment of being caught off guard. Their uneasiness was nothing new. The story had changed, so it was simply louder now. My dad got up. Layla. His voice was unreadable and rough. This place is yours, I responded. Equally across 4 states, adding that I own 17. He didn't respond. Not necessary, I said. I'm not here for applause. I came to give something back. I nodded slightly in Hannah's direction. 2 team members, each carrying svelte black folders, followed her forward. Inside were signed event contracts. 1 for each visitor. Layla Morgan is her name. They have a single note and itemized rates. Occasionally, the story you attempted to remove still ends up on the wall close to the rear. Janine laughed softly. Knowingly, why didn't you use your full name from the beginning? A gentle, older man standing next to my father asked. I hesitated because I wanted to construct something before anyone made a decision about what it should be. As I moved away, he nodded quietly and with understanding in his eyes. It was the noise, not the light, that dimmed the ballroom. I didn't feel invisible for the first time in years. A diplomat was discreetly assigned to the VIP suite that Sophie had insisted on calling 4 times to secure. Arriving late, she was heavily pregnant. Naturally, Sophie's new room was still lovely, but it was the same kind of alley that I used to clean for $9. $75 an hour. Aunt Janine came looking for me, but my father never did. After 11 p.m., she knocked on the door of my office. She wasn't invited in. She didn't enquire. All she did was give me an envelope. It contained a picture I hadn't seen in many years. I was on the back porch of the old Bristow house, maybe 8 years old. My father's hand rested lightly on my shoulder while he held a pitcher of lemonade in both hands. Not for anything noteworthy, but because I spilt the lemonade a few minutes later. I remembered that day, fearful of receiving a reprimand. Nobody spoke. They chuckled. I didn't feel like I belonged on the back again after that. You were woven into Janine's looping script. That was all. Before I could say anything, she was gone. I rode the elevator to the service floor the following morning. The housekeeping staff was getting started. Some gave a nod. A young woman grinned, and then averted her gaze. I strolled over to the former supply room. Our break area is now. Near the rear wall was a coat rack. I took the framed name tag out of my bag. Lila. Cleaning. Above the jackets. I hung it. No spotlight. No black. Just a nail and some wood. Sophie left a note in her room later that day. We did something that you didn't deserve. Although I didn't respond, the return address appeared on the reunion. Invitations sent out the following spring. Caldwell Miracle at ellen.group. Please subscribe and stick around if my story speaks to you. I didn't construct Maple Harbor to make a statement. I constructed it to provide a home for people like us. Tell me what they attempted to remove from you in the comments section below. Even if the voice is only a whisper, it still matters. If you have ever been forgotten or forgotten, know you are not by yourself. It matters how strong you are in silence, and your future is built with each little step you take. Together, we surpass everyone's expectations. So please subscribe and come along on this journey with me. Your assistance means the world to me.